Subject: Helmkert Darren, former Marshal of the 23rd Cadmere Regiment, gathered report considering the incident of the town of Sudenmark. Date: 21st of 7th, 543 IC. As required by the Imperial General Villian of the 23rd Regiment of Region Cadmere, was relocated to the town of Sudenmark due to recent reports of supernatural events taking place around the town. Personally, I believe that superstition runs rampant through this region. It is not the first time we receive reports of strange occurrences that lead to nothing. However, if the town would be attacked by some invisible enemy, then the rest of the region would probably boil over in fury. And so we march to answer the call of another phantom. Date: 24th of 7th, 543 IC. Reached the town of Sudenmark with no trouble, no sign of brigands and other dangers around the road. However, upon reaching the noted location, we were met by a rather frightened populace. We were shown neither respect nor hospitality. Rather, we'd closed the doors. One could mistake it for a ghost town, if not for the hushed voices and frantic glances coming from every house. Ungrateful. Eventually, after knocking on multiple doors, did I find someone willing to answer. A young girl that lived in one of the more run-down households walked out to greet us, and upon further questioning was willing to share what had transpired. Apparently, the townsfolk had awoken 2 weeks prior to find the mutilated corpse of one Derek Fitch, torn into 4 pieces and placed in the town square to form the shape of an eye. I admit, a disturbing tale, but not one that would necessarily confirm the presence of supernatural creatures. After more searching and pressing the townsfolk for information, we can assume that the victim was not especially liked amongst the people. He apparently was a bit of a drunk and had on multiple occasions created problems for the other townsfolk. So the possibility that this was caused by a group of vengeful loons is likely. However, the nature of which he had been so brutally killed and then mutilated leaves a foul taste in my mouth. Date: 27/7/543 IC. After 2 days of investigation, we have found someone that might know what exactly happened. One of the boys spotted a figure peering at us from the tree line of the nearby forest, and of course I sent out a squad to retrieve the fellow. He had put up a fight, I heard, pitiful though it was. The man's name is Thomason Lithkin. He has a bit of a reputation around the town, things like causing unrest and spouting nonsense about voices in the trees. More superstitious nonsense, I'm sure. Pressing him for information proves no luck, but if it would be anyone in town who would commit such a deranged act like this, I'm betting on the raving lunatic. We march towards Rockskrod tomorrow morning to deliver the madman to the hangman, and then to stay there until further orders are received. I have, as per request of the townsfolk, left a single squadron of state militia to provide a brief garrison force until the criminal has been put to justice. Date: the 3rd of the 8th, 543 IC. The execution has been completed according to schedule. However, I am concerned. The garrison force I left in Sudenmark has yet to report back as instructed. Not only is this highly unusual, but could potentially prove a suspicion of mine, that there had actually been an hidden enemy force around the area that had yet to attack. The town could have been assaulted and burned down. Therefore, I will march my regiment back to the town to survey if something has happened, or if not, then to deliver punishment for disobeying orders. End of personal report. The following is the recorded confession from the interrogations after Helmkert was reprimanded. I promise I don't know what happened. When I arrived, the town was already... Mr. Helmkert, it would be in your best interest to speak when spoken to. Understand? Good. Firstly, how many soldiers did you leave to garrison the town? I left a squad of around 10, I believe. An exact number, please. 9, sir. 9 soldiers in total. And how long did you leave the town before returning? Well, 5 days at least. Can you give me a precise report of what you saw on returning to the town? You wouldn't believe me. The things I saw. No person should have seen the night... It seems you don't understand your disposition yet, Mr. Helmkert. You will answer my questions as they are asked, or we will consider you guilty. Is that understood? Yes. Yes, sir, I understand. Very well. Let's try this again, shall we? What exactly did you see upon reaching the former town of Suddenburg? Yes, I'll tell you as best I can. We arrived back to Suddenburg during sundown. The men had marched for a while, so setting up camp was naturally the first priority. However, once the town was within sight, all of that changed. The town was a ruin. Something had ravaged through it and left it a silent husk. I remember standing in shock at first. I feared my suspicions to be true, and that an invading army had reached the city and burned it to the ground. But my fears were quickly answered. For the town was not burned, nor had it been pillaged in any way. But the aftermath was clear to see. An oppressive silence lay heavy over the town. I remember the men were mortified at the sight of it, almost like staring at a desecrated husk. Eventually, we did finally break open the palisade gate and stumble into the dead town. The horrors within still haunt me to this day. I see the faces of the people that once lived there, frozen agape, as if their death was a horrific one. And well, considering their remains, I can't blame the poor bastards. In front of each house were the mutilated corpses of their prior inhabitants, twisted and mangled like a cloth wringed out of all moisture. A veritable ocean of blood had pooled in the middle of the street, heading to the town square. Worst of all was the fact each and every single corpse were missing their eyes. This initial sight alone was enough for most of my men to freeze in terrified shock, and some even turned around to run away. Yet, in the abject horror, I was still drawn inward, deeper into this hell. Something in there was calling to me to enter, and apparently some of my men shared the same sentiment, for they followed me as we continued past one horrific corpse after another. Deeper into the madness, as we walked in silence, I saw some houses had been smeared in blood. Others had their roof caved inward. Yet despite differences in appearance, every house had a mound of crushed flesh placed in front, all missing their eyes. This horror continued until we had reached the town square, and what I saw there I almost dare not speak of. The recollection brings me to tears of bottomless fear. The stream of blood had followed us to this accursed place, and had merged together with a multitude of other streams from every direction of the town. Within the middle of the square was an altar made from bones, and a large symbol had carefully been built from the vast amounts of ice collected. An eye made of ice. I stood there. I could not move, nor could I tear my eyes from that unholy altar of defilement, its grotesque glory bare for anyone to see. I can remember it so clearly. Rows of human eyes placed to form a symbol of dreadful portent. A most fascinating story, Mr. Helmcoat. But what happened after this discovery? Fascinating? Is that all you have to say? I just described a scene from a nightmare, and all you have to say is fascinating? Stay on track, Mr. Helmcoat. The specific nature of what you might have seen means little. You did burn down the town, no? So what happened after this? After that, well, the sun's last rays of light had all but disappeared at this point. I don't know exactly how long I stood there, frozen in horror, but eventually the darkness began creeping in from all directions. One of my men lit a torch as his standard, and another had managed to snap out of the state of fear. He shook my shoulders and took my attention away from the altar. I slowly regained myself, but as I looked back, it was already too late. We were doomed the moment we stepped foot into that cursed place. We heard screams erupt from where we came from. My men, they were dying back there from something unknown. Then it catched us too. In seconds, all fell silent, and then a distant yet all-encompassing sound echoed all around us as we stood trying to comprehend what was happening. It was like a wall of low whispers rang all around us, and with it a pitch-black darkness fell swiftly. The only thing keeping it at bay was the light from the torches. Eternal blessing to the sun god for shielding us from that nightmare. The light could only reach so far, and two of my men, they were devoured by it. I struggle to describe, but it was as if the night itself was a predator, feeding on their flesh. Dragged down, they could only scream, as limbs were severed and flesh simply vanished from their bodies. In a flash of horror, they were gone, eaten whole by ravenous darkness. Then they came. Within the darkness, 4 shapes appeared as from nothing, their outline only visible by the brave light of the fire. They looked human, but tall, twice the size of an adult man, and yet thin. And their eyes, bottomless pits of immortal darkness. I could do nothing. I was frozen once more, a subject to my animalistic instinct for survival. As if it would have helped. Then a soldier that stood next to me drew his blade, and the brave fool. One of the figures of darkness lifted its clawed hand and closed it into a fist. The soldier roared and swung towards the thing, but the light of his torch vanished, as if it too had been swallowed. I could not hear him scream, but as the light disappeared, so did the brave soldier, devoured by the night. After that, there was only me and one more soldier. I fell to my knees, clutching hold of the divine symbol to solace. An overbearing sense of fear had consumed every fiber of my being. Yet I knelt there, reciting the prayer of sunlight, hoping beyond hope that the sun god would save me from this hell. And then the light from the last torch vanished as well, and I was alone, submerged in darkness. However, at the final moment of dread, something happened. I can only describe it as a miracle. The dark that had eaten all the others, it did not take me. I slowly opened my eyes, and in my hands, the symbol of solace had begun to shine. A calm, yet warm light emitted from the symbol, forcing the darkness to stay away. I can only say that, in that moment, the god of sunlight had blessed me and saved me from that oblivion.
Could you finish, please? This has already gone on for a while, Mr. Helmcote. You stand accused of burning down the town of Serpentine, which led to the death of its citizens and multiple Imperial soldiers. If the only defense you have to offer is this, then I would have to judge you guilty.
You don't believe me?
No, I don't. What you speak of is madness. There have been no reports or occurrences of a phenomenon of the kind you describe. No trace of arcane magic, nor anything else except the burned ruin of the town.
I'm not lying, I swear to soul.
Do not speak of the All-Father anymore, you heretic. I should have your tongue removed for such blasphemy.
I am speaking truth. It is all true.
I have heard enough. You, Helmcote Darren, is hereby sentenced to death by hanging for the burning of Sudenmark, the death of its citizens, and the death of the soldiers under your command. Your execution will be held in 2 days. I suggest you make peace with the All-Father so that you might be forgiven in the afterlife.
Fine. So be it.
There is nothing but darkness anyway. I can still hear them, you know, whenever the wind blows through this place. I can hear them. The whispers in the wind.